This is an interview with Henry Peddle, retired faculty member of Elgin Community College. Henry taught in the social science disciplines during his tenure from 1955 to 1995 and was on the faculty during major changes in the college. This interview is being conducted on July 14th, 2016 at Elgin Community College. The interviewer is Polly Nash and the videographer is Jack Weiss. Thank you so much for joining us, Henry. What we'd like to do is start out with just a little bit about your own biography, when and where you were born, and a little bit about your family and early schooling.
Okay. I was born in Highland Park, Illinois, in a hospital. Not all our family members were born in a hospital. Some were born at home. I was born on August 21st, 1930. Dr. Rossiter. My mom had been a teacher in one-room schoolhouses before she got married, and she taught somewhat after my dad died in 1947. She went back to school at age 53 or whatever it was. There were 8 children in the family. I was the youngest boy. I have a younger sister who's still alive now. I have an older brother that is 92, and he lives in Lake Forest. He goes back and forth to Florida. He has a place in Florida. My father, his grandfather came from Nova Scotia by way of Newfoundland. My mother's family, she says the story is that her grandfather came on a boat, a sailboat. I'm not sure exactly how they did this or where they came in, but they were from Luxembourg originally, and she says that there was royalty in the family. So I don't know. I can't trace that down. My early schooling. I went to several grade schools. I went to a public primary kindergarten. I went to a parochial school for the first, second, and third grades. It was the same architectural style as Our Lady of Angels, a building in Chicago. Not very many exits. Church was on the first floor, and the priest was very authoritarian at that place. I went to Deerfield to Holy Cross Church for my 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. 7th and 8th grade, I went to Elm Place School in Highland Park. There's some controversy over it right now because they're going to tear the building down, but it was a wonderful grade school. We had a greenhouse. There was an observatory on the roof. There were science rooms. It was a grade school, but it was kindergarten through 8th grade. I had no plans to go to college at first, and then in 1947 I attended a World Jamboree with the Boy Scouts in France, and there was no Cold War in 1947. So we met youngsters from Czechoslovakia and from Poland and from most of Europe, and I was corresponding with a youngster from Czechoslovakia. But at a later time, when the Cold War started, I got a letter from his aunt in St. Louis not to write to him anymore because he would be in trouble. But it was very interesting. So
in 47 you went to the Scout Jamboree, but you hadn't decided to go on to...
I had not decided to go on to college yet.
When did you decide that?
2 weeks before the fall session at Northern in 1948. I hitchhiked to Northern, got the admission papers, hitchhiked back, brought them to the high school because they had to fill out stuff. I said, it's got to be done immediately. And they cooperated with me. Part of the motivating factor to go to college was that I had a couple of really crummy jobs, if you will. I worked at a gas station. Actually, I worked 3 different gas stations over time and was offered a manager job, and I didn't like that. And I had another one that was the most boring job I ever had was as a lifeguard for a couple of summers. That was bad, but I started Northern in 1948. Yes, and I was going with World War II veterans at that time. There were 6 of us sharing half an attic on 501 College Avenue in DeKalb, and that is a long story. It opened up just at the last minute, and I was able to get. That's a block from the campus. It was just a wonderful kind of thing. I paid $3.25 a week for the bed, 1 drawer, and about a foot of hanging space. But it was okay. It was okay. It was tolerable. Hiring process at ECC. Actually, I started as an American history teacher at Elgin High School in 1955. But I was hired with the idea of teaching in the community college. Now, there were only about 10 of us that came directly from Elgin High School to ECC on a more permanent basis. We had 100 on the faculty at Elgin High School when I started, and some of them were, they were quite good in what they did. They were demanding of their students, but they were fair. It was very good. I'll talk about some of the facts.
Do you remember who was on the faculty at that time, Henry?
Yes. Gus Stewart was on the faculty at that time. Carl Lair was on the faculty. Carl Lair was a class sponsor, class of 57 at the Elgin High School. And Mike Elft was class sponsor of the class of 58. And Gus Stewart was the class sponsor of the class of 59 at Elgin High School. I had a homeroom with the class of 58. I had some S's, and that's how they divided them by just part of the alphabet. So I had S's, Strachany and Swanson, and
Those were some of the students in your homeroom.
Yeah, students, right,
okay.
Right.
Can you go back, Henry, to actually when you were hired and what was the hiring process?
I was hired in probably July of 55, and they had department heads from all the departments, plus the superintendent. The superintendent wasn't there. He was in Europe at the time. So I had the assistant superintendents and so forth.
And who were they?
Like Marvin Berge, and I can't recall the names right away, but Homer Shelby was from the Department of Social Sciences,
okay.
And it was hot, and of course there's no air conditioning at that time, and the room was in the old Elgin High School. They had not moved to that corner red brick building that later became an administrative center. When the high school, or when the U46 administration moved out of the high school building, that's when ECC moved into those facilities as part of our ECC administration area. Okay. We followed a lot of the kind of plans or activities, if you will, that the high school followed. For example, the high school had book rental. ECC at first had book rental.
Erica the students Varick did not buy their books; they would rent them.
They would rent them, and Erica Varick had one closet with all the books for ECC at that time.
And she was...
She was the Gil Renner's secretary.
right.
But, we all wore a lot of hats in those days. It was...
So when you were hired to teach what courses?
I was primarily an American history teacher initially. I had taken lots of geography, and I had taken no anthropology at that time, but later I beefed up in the field of anthropology. Actually, when I started teaching sociology at a later date, I started taking a lot more classes at Northern that were on a master's level. I took all graduate classes. I took no undergraduate classes when I took professional development for myself. Now, a lot of U46 teachers were taking undergraduate classes. I never took any at that time because I wanted to groom myself to be a better teacher on the college level.
Wonderful. And so you were teaching U.S. history both to high school classes and college classes?
No, I was teaching it for 1955 and 56 school years, but in 57 school year, Carl Lehrer went to Germany on a Fulbright scholarship, and they needed somebody to teach both the high school and the college, both American and European history, and I taught both of those for the school year at that time.
Okay, so for both at that time. So we've talked about who was on the faculty at that time and some of the courses you were teaching. What were the students like when you first started teaching?
The students, let's see, the returning female students were really good students. A lot of the males had probably tried the four-year colleges and didn't quite qualify as much, and it was a kind of an afterthought. Maybe I'll be able to try ECC, and so in the day program, the students weren't as good. Now the summer program, we drew students from all over, and they were trying to speed up their program and cut their costs. So we had excellent, more, really high academic qualification of students in the summer sessions, I think. But one of the things, the women, they were coming back. They had 2 or 3 kids, and some of them entered the nursing program, and they were super students. I was really very proud of some of them. Some adults came back. I had, a lot of the students that were tenacious and did go to the four-year schools, they did better than the ones that had entered the four-year schools originally. So as juniors and so forth in the four-year school. So we were very proud of that. But we, there were a lot of students that tried it out and didn't always do as well as we would have liked. But some, while we didn't have a vocational technical program immediately, right when we were starting to break off and this transition, but eventually, we started. I think the nursing program was the strongest, and we had Miss Gabler, if you will, who had been the head of the nursing department for the whole Elgin Public Schools. She came over and helped to get it going, and came full time with the ECC, which was wonderful for us. A lot of my students were very successful later. I've never done any formal follow-ups, and my memory isn't always that good. But several lawyers, lots of teachers. One that gave me some credit was editor and publisher of the Courier News when they had the 50th. I was very proud of that. And he took my criminology class, and he went on our field trips with us. But he drove his Cadillac, and he wrote a paper, and he asked if he could publish the paper later. And I said, "You own the paper." I said, "I don't own it. You own it." And he said he wanted to have a follow-up, and he wanted to interview somebody that was on death row. And I said, "Fine." I was teaching a social problems class in the college, and one of the youngsters was a pilot, and he said, "Well, I want to do studies of pollution." He said, "Can we, can I take pictures from the plane?" I said, "You can do whatever you want to. That's fine." One wanted to study tollway evasion of the tolls, and he couldn't get permission from the Illinois Toll Authority to get onto tollway property. But he wanted to do that. So
interesting.
It was
kinds of social
yeah,
issues that you
right. It was interesting. The kids had good ideas sometimes. Right. In 1968, we did have students that went down and protested at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, much to Mayor Daley's consternation. He was not too happy with all the different people down there protesting. But it was an interesting period. During
the Red Scare, or during the 50s, were there any other things that happened to you as a faculty member?
Not personally. I don't think so. But I think that these things were in the back of our minds, and when we were having discussions in classroom and so forth, things would come up.
And when you started, were all the students just coming from Elgin?
No. We were before we had our own college district. We were drawing students from Waukegan and Rockford and Aurora and Mount Prospect and Roselle, all over the place. I was amazed because these students, we had no student housing. So these, I don't know, I presume that some of them took rooms in town, but I think the majority probably commuted.
You taught in the classroom. What other responsibilities did you have as a teacher?
Well, I did chaperoning. Now, some questioned whether we needed chaperones for the older group, and so there was sometimes some controversy over that. But the chaperoning, for example, a hay ride, up north of town in areas that are all urban now, but it was rural at that time. We had sock hops. We had dinner dances for the ECC. We'd go to a country club. It was kind of reminiscent of high school proms. And I think that's part of the reason why it eventually faded. We also, Joe and I, my wife and I, went to Camp Edwards because we had a fall camp for orientation for freshman students. Sophomores would be the counselors, and the freshmen would wear beanies. And Gil Renner used to like to ride to run the boat that was up there at Camp Edwards. He had some pretty good ties, I guess, with Camp Edwards. He used to drive back and forth from Springfield when we were trying to establish a junior college movement in Illinois, and I don't think he's given enough credit for what he did.
He was an important
Oh, I think
person
so.
at
I
the
think so.
whole beginning of the
I think
community
that
college.
a lot of the business people gave support, but they had other occupations and they were busy with their other things. But Gil, this was a 24-hour day, 7 days a week kind of thing, and he kept the faculty informed. Now, you have to remember that, I have a 1962 directory, and they list something like 100 people on ECC's faculty. There was no way that we really had 100 people on ECC's faculty. We had about 10 of us at that time. And that we're going from the high school to the college, and we're part of the meetings that Gil Renner would have, and we had to make decisions. Would we have football? No. Would we, how would we set up a salary schedule? How would we pay vocational technical people? Would we, if they don't have master's degrees, but they do have vocational skills and credits and so forth, how do we do that? And we sat down, how do you determine out-of-district students and the tuition that they would have?
There was a time when the college had to seek lots of places to teach classes because they were running out of space
Right.
at Elgin High School. Can you talk about your experiences and maybe some of the places
Okay.
and what happened with students?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think Renner Hall opened in, I think it's 1959. And Renner Hall, when it first opened, we were kind of laughing because they had a sprinkler system on the outside back stairwell, which we thought, if that has water in it, it's going to freeze up, right away. But Gil reassured us that there was air in the system, and that if there was a fire, that the air would be released from the system, and then water would come in. We did have some offices there. But one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that, again, some of us had 2 or 3 hats that we were wearing. So I had offices in Elgin High School and in the college at the same time.
Before we moved to the new campus, the students often had to move from one class to another in an actual different part of Elgin City. And
They couldn't, they had to figure the logistics.
Right.
The students had problems. I think the biggest problems sometimes were parking, because the parking at the old Ellis Business College, which we redubbed it the Social Science Center,
okay.
It was all meter parking around there. Plus Ackerman's had a parking lot, a dry goods store downtown. The kids found that they could take the little round tabs from Pop, and they would trigger the meter. But in order to clear it, there's a little thing you could see what was in there. The last coin, they'd throw a nickel or something in there, but they would get parking when they went to the Social Science Center, or they would have an Ackerman's bag and put it in the back of the car and pull into Ackerman's parking lot for an hour for their class at the Social Science Center. From 1955 to 65, I was on TRS, Teachers Retirement System. In 65, that's when we started on the SURS system, the State University Retirement System. And that did create lots of changes too. Lots of the people that had been teaching part-time for ECC in 65, they stopped pretty much, or they stopped being part of the retirement system at that time.
That was all part of the movement from
U46.
From U46.
Right.
the full-fledged, all-by-itself college.
Yeah.
And there were some teachers who decided to go with the college and were invited to go with the college, and some teachers who decided to stay with U46.
Well, and you have to remember that it wasn't just just the college and U46. It was also the Elgin High School, because Larkin was an opportunity too. And the college already was starting to hire people that were going to be full-time in the college even before 1970. We, for example, Ed Cobb and Vern Bashaw came in, and they never taught any high school classes, but they were in before we went to the new campus.
And Ed Cobb and Vern Bashaw were taught what?
Business courses. Business courses, right. And it was, pretty, lots of hiring was starting to take place, both for Larkin, because they opened in 62, but some teachers went from the high school to Larkin. For example, Ed Schultz went from high school, Elgin High, to Larkin before he came to ECC. Mike Elft, for some reason, he taught for ECC right up until 1965, but somehow I think somebody convinced him to stay with the high school. And but he would have been a gem for us, because he wrote our first accrediting report. Our first accrediting was through University of Illinois. And when University of Illinois said they were going out of the accrediting business, they said, you'll have to go to the accrediting agencies. And I think at that time it was North Central. And Mike Elft wrote the first one. I'm not sure what the year was. And Carl Lair wrote the second one. Carl Lair. So we had a couple of social science people that were doing this, not the English people, the social science people that were writing these.
There came a time when, as I understand it, we were looking for accreditation and concerned about the library, which had been unified with the school's library, and then we had
right. Well,
separate library.
The card catalog at the Goebel Library at Elgin High School did not identify which books were ECC's books. Now, we were buying books long before we separated, and they had Elgin Community College on a stamp on each of the books. But when we started the separation, that was long before 1970. We were in some of the houses on East Chicago Street in Elgin, and then we moved from those houses to Renner Hall itself for a little while, and then we moved from Renner Hall to the Masonic Temple. But the library, I think, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Carl Lair, Mike Elft, and I took my station wagon and went to the used bookstores in Chicago. I don't even remember the time of the year, but it must have been warmer weather though. And we each had, maybe $400 to buy books to beef up the ECC library quickly, so that we didn't have a glaring problem there. That did help, I think, a little bit. I don't have any idea how many books, but how many can you get in the back of a station wagon? We had a lot of books. And we were very, very proud of this.
So you made that decision to choose Elgin Community College.
Oh, yes, absolutely. My certification originally was called Limited Junior College certification, and that was through Keene County Superintendent of Schools. That's how my credentials were originally. in 1955 you had to you had to submit your credentials to the county superintendent, and it went through the state somehow. I'm not sure all the procedures, but I kept my credentials, even though I didn't need them at ECC. I kept them right up until I retired. I kept paying my fees, my annual fees, and getting the certificate renewed. The curriculum, I tried to change the sociology curriculum to regular sociology, 4-year acceptable kind of courses rather than high schoolish type courses. And I felt that that was a pretty important thing to make our credits more reasonable. The Soc 100 class, for example, was not a Soc 100 class when I came to ECC. It was a social problems class. It was not an introduction to sociology. I changed it to an introduction to sociology. The marriage class was not a sociology of marriage class when I came. It was a how to get ready to get married class. And it was with Evelyn Duvall textbook, which was more of a high school textbook than a college textbook.
So you really made some major changes.
I made major changes without going through the curriculum committee. I felt that those were the kind of steps that had to be taken to have a proper curriculum.
So you really moved that curriculum to college level.
Yes, I did.
And broadened.
Yes, and broadened it. I added the telecourse in Principles of Sociology that came out of Miami-Dade colleges in Florida, which was a very respectable, very good job that they had done with it. And the marriage and family, I brought that in. There was a little bit of controversy at the beginning on that, but I had the credentials and so forth, and I actually later reviewed. I was one of the 5 community college people. No, I was the only community college person, I think, that reviewed Keppert's book on marriage and family, which was one of the big national marriage and family textbooks.
So could you talk some more about the move from the downtown campus to what we call the main campus, or the Spartan?
Okay. The main campus, we were all very excited about moving to the new campus. The architects said that we had to have 50 acres of parking, and we couldn't imagine that we needed 50 acres of parking. When we moved out there, we were pressured on our science classrooms first. And the science classrooms we rented from the Burnage family, what we called the North Annex at that time. And they had, we had childcare and the nursing, and I think our human services went into that building. I'm not sure what else. But they had some really pretty good facilities for a rented facility. They were designed for us. And that was in 1969 that we moved in out there. Now, in 1970, in the fall of 1970, we moved into what we called the A building. I'm not sure now if it would still be called the A building, because we have all these lettered buildings now. And the B and C building.
B building now.
It's the B building now, okay. But the building that was yet to be completed on the east was to be administrative area, and the building on the west side of the A building was to be for science classes. But those were not completed when we first moved out onto the new campus. And we probably didn't need them as much either. The students had some transportation problems originally when we came out to the new campus. They needed automobiles probably a little bit more than when we were downtown. And I'm not sure the buses started running, perhaps, but the state of Illinois wouldn't do a whole lot on the road work. They said until the problems exist, we're not going to anticipate the problems out there on your new campus. But now they're working on them. Now, how many years later?
Since you have moved to the Spartan campus, what changes did you see in your teaching?
Well, I think that we were becoming much more separated with our own identity when we got out there onto the new campus. One of the things we had, I in the summer of '70, I had gone to Boulder, Colorado, to work on an anthropology training because we didn't have much anthropology in the program, and Gus Stewart and I wanted to push anthropology a little bit. He wanted it in his department, I wanted it in the social science department, but we figured that can deal with that later. But we did have, before Kurt Peterson started teaching, we had an Episcopalian priest that taught anthropology for, I think, a year, and did a good job of it. I don't think he taught any of the archaeology. I think it was just introduction to anthropology. That worked out pretty well, but I think then they hired Kurt Peterson somewhere around the line there.
You've mentioned Kurt Peterson. I'm wondering if you could talk about any other fellow colleagues that particularly stand out in your mind.
Yeah, well, I think Kurt and Sam Robinson. Sam Robinson is deceased now, but they helped to push, for example, going down to Campsville for the archaeological digs in Campsville, and I think that was a wonderful thing. Some of the other ones, Marv Kuhlman came over from the Elgin High School, and he was teaching our geology. And Chuck Medeiros came in, but he was more an administrator. He'd been an administrator at Larkin High School. Gus Stewart was always an interesting character. Max von Esser, he used to, when he was at Elgin High School, we would all go across the street to, there was a little drugstore, and we'd have coffee over there during some of our breaks. And Max used to spend a lot of time at the Elgin High School, and he was always, I don't know what the deal was, but he brought in, Max von Esser brought in oil painting, he brought in photography, he brought in, he was working with jewelry making, and he always was thinking of what new things he could do.
Henry, in 1995, you decided to retire.
Yes.
Can you talk about your decision?
In 1995, I don't know, I was still quite happy with teaching, and I think teaching is really good because it keeps you younger, and it keeps you focused on lots of current things and so on.
And
right.
So what have you been doing in your retirement?
Primarily travel, but Golfed a lot. My wife's more into golfing than I am, but I've traveled pretty far. South America, Central America, Mexico, Europe, India, China.
As we wrap up our conversation with you, do you have any final reflections of your 40 years of teaching at Elgin Community College?
Well, I think that it has been really quite wonderful. It's given me a good life. We had good relationships way back at that time. It was wonderful. But yes.
Thank you. I was just thinking, a man who had started out his career at Elgin doing such things as being a hall monitor, chaperoning dances, taking students on field trips, going to Chicago to buy used books for our library, really creating a wonderful wide variety curriculum that met university standards. You really have contributed wholeheartedly and selflessly to our college, and we thank you.
I've enjoyed it.